Hello and welcome to That's Football. It's the Monday walk to work. Drop a like if you like the concept, and we're here to talk about the Premier League and the weekend that's just gone by. Koeman under more pressure. I've got to say straight away, Manchester United destroying Everton for the third week in a row there. Not United beating Everton 3 weeks in a row, but Everton having some bad results at the moment. But I think Koeman to be mentioned in the same sentence as the sack is ridiculous. Their fixtures have been tough, to say the least, playing the likes of United and City and obviously Spurs and others, plus the Europa League, which is a nightmare. And then on top of that, watching Everton play yesterday, abundantly clear that Lukaku is a very hard player to replace. And I think teams like Everton struggle like that because they're not traditionally one of the top 5 or 6 teams who can go and buy a top striker. So Everton just really, I think, are going to be work in progress. And Koeman is a decent manager. Want to talk about Jurgen Klopp because I think he's the king of the flops at the moment, and I think Liverpool fans are starting to realise that as well. I mean, at what point do you draw a line under it and say it's not worked out that well? He's been here for, well, been at Liverpool for 2 years. His win rate, I believe, is worse than Brendan Rodgers. It's certainly worse than David Moyes was at Manchester United. And yes, the plan A is very good. The plan A is very good, and apparently they've got the best attack in the Premier League. Well, there is a retainer when I say, well, if they've got the best attack in the Premier League, why is their goal difference 0? And obviously the stuffing at Man City says a lot about that, but I think that's a bit of a myth. Arguably Manchester United's attack is better than Liverpool's, scoring a lot more goals, a lot more clinical at the end of games, and Liverpool fans might moan about that, but look, you can be very entertaining, but if you don't put the ball in the back of the net, like Burnley at home, then things are going wrong. Defensively, Liverpool have got problems, but I think this is the modern phenomenon in the Premier League, that you've got the press who just spend so much time bigging up new managers and sort of trying to knock down the older managers. So, you know, Wenger, Mourinho, they do get a lot of stick, whereas the likes of Conte, Fraudiola, sorry, I'm not on the United stand, Guardiola, Klopp, they get a lot of credit, and oh, you know, these are the managers we want in the Premier League, because they're like new toys, really. I think Klopp gets away with a lot, and I think Liverpool fans are starting to get a bit frustrated with it. When consistency starts to seep in, that's when you've got a problem. And Liverpool consistently drop points against teams that they should beat. They consistently go missing as defenders, and that's got to come down to a manager when he's been there for 2 years. So I think, you know, he's the king of the flops at the moment. I think Koeman has a job on, a very hard job, when you've lost your striker like Lukaku, and the fixtures they've had, and the next few weeks will be key for him. It'd be a disgrace if Everton sacked him. I don't think they will. Pochettino deserves a mention at Spurs before we come on to the big boys, well, the managers who are top of the league. But I think the Premier League's changed massively over the last few weeks, very interestingly as well. A couple of weeks ago we had like West Brom, Huddersfield up near the top, and in a few short weeks, well, two game weeks, everything seems to have changed very quickly. Last week most of the big teams won. This week only City and United, and they've created a bit of a gap. West Brom obviously dropping away with 1 point from 2 games, and Huddersfield sort of dropping back to where they are. So the Premier League is starting to take shape. I think a couple of more weeks and we'll really start to see what's going to happen this season. Jurgen Klopp says football Red Devils. So who is our biggest game coming up? Crystal Palace or Liverpool? Says Google. I think he's referring to United. Well, Liverpool for United straight after the international break. If United win the next 2, they'll be top of the league. So we were talking about Pochettino. I like Spurs, I like Pochettino, I like what he does, but the Wembley curse is just, you know, I spoke about it in the summer and it's happening every week. Whatever happens now, Spurs fans will look back on those first 3 games and say 1 point from 9. It's going to be hard, and I don't think Spurs are Premier League contenders. I think they're a very good side, but I think, you know, you chase the money at Wembley, and what choice did they have, really? They had to renovate White Hart Lane, and it's going to be amazing, but it does sort of undermine their home form when away teams are coming to Wembley. And like I said before, they might never play at Wembley in their whole life, so they're just inspired. City, not surprising what Guardiola's doing. He's You know, he's got probably the best set of attackers in the league. But City started the season like this last year, and for all the goals they're scoring, they've still got the same amount of points as Manchester United. So City will be judged on how they do throughout the season. If they play like they are all season, they'll be worthy champions. I don't think they will, but that's the gauntlet that's been thrown down to Guardiola. Manchester United, I think Mourinho's doing a great job. Winning that game yesterday 4-0, I think even surprised United fans, because, you know, as Gary Neville said, it wasn't a 4-0 game. Having said that, I think it's getting to the point now where people need to be a little bit wise with their words when they say, oh, United were lucky to win 4-0. What part of that result was lucky? You know, it might not have been a 4-0 game, but actually every one of those goals was a goal, and there was 4 of them. You know, Martial's penalty, totally a penalty, and he scored it. Mkhitaryan's goal, well worked by Lukaku. Lukaku's goal, Everton failed to clear a free kick. Valencia's goal, well, you know, technique was fantastic. So, you know, maybe 4-0 was a flattering score in the balance of the game, but you can't argue with any of the goals. Everton had their chances, didn't put them away, and United did. And at the moment, United are very, very clinical, and the reality is everyone's waxing lyrical about Guardiola's team, and quite rightly, it's a very good attacking side, but United have got the same goal difference. So at the moment they're doing really well. I think Pogba will be a loss for them, and I think everybody needs to take it game by game at the moment, but I do think that there is that, you know, Arsenal got a good result at Chelsea yesterday. We've not mentioned them. You know, you really would have put money on the fact that Arsenal would blow it at Stamford Bridge, and I think Chelsea will be disappointed, but I think Chelsea's inadequacies sort of reared their head up. You know, Champions League game midweek, drop points at the weekend. That's pretty much what happens in the Champions League quite a lot. No matter who you're playing, a midweek game can sort of disrupt what happens at the weekend. And, you know, Arsenal good for a point, and 4 points from their last 6. I mean, Arsenal are not going to be contenders for the title, but that's little steps forward, which is what Arsenal need to do, because I think they've got a tough season ahead of them. I think they'll be very happy if they can be contenders for 4th. Certainly not a title winning side. I said this yesterday when I was watching that game. You're not a title winning side if you've got Lacazette, Welbeck and Iwobi up front. It's just not good enough. I mean, I know Welbeck from his Man United days, full of effort, but he just hasn't got, I don't think he's a top 4 striker anywhere near it. He's just not got the clinical finishing. Full of effort, but if Arsenal play in, they'll be battling for 4th, I feel. But Chelsea, next week's a big game for Chelsea. If they win that game, they get themselves back in it. They're only 3 points behind United and City. Arsenal 6 points behind. Liverpool and Spurs 5 points behind. So interesting. Very hard to comment on the bottom of the league at the moment, because I still think there's a lot of room to sort of see what's going to happen in that. But the top of it's starting to take shape. And at the moment, as I said, and as I started with, I think Liverpool fans are starting to wake up to Klopp. I've always said the shortest dictionary in the world is the one on Jurgen Klopp's bookshelf. It starts with A and it ends with A. There is no plan B. A very good plan A, but if you figure out how to deal with it, which most of the smaller clubs manage to do when they go to Anfield, which in itself, if you know, countless teams like Burnley can come to Anfield and figure out how to beat them and, well, get a draw, they've got problems. And after 2 years, I think the consistency, as I said before, starts to slip back in, and I think Liverpool have got problems, but we'll see what happens. Liverpool fans, a lot of them still think that Klopp's the Messiah, the new king, and so do the press, but I don't see it. Just because he's passionate and he pulls ugly faces on the touchline doesn't make him a great manager. So we'll see what happens, but at the moment it's Guardiola and Mourinho leading the race, and the others are playing catch up. That's the Premier League review. Drop a like on the video and give us your comments below if you like it. We'll do more of these. I know we've been doing That's Football in the studio, but more than happy to do a few of these as well. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Hope you have a good start to the week, and I'll speak to you all soon.